through together. It's the invisible enemy. It's always the toughest enemy, the invisible enemy, but we're going to defeat
Hey guys,
the invisible enemy. I
OBS
think we're going
seems
to
to
do it
be
even
giving us
faster
trouble,
than
probably.
we thought,
Don't know.
and it will be a complete victory. It'll be
Trump
a
is
total
speaking as
victory.
in the background there.
So we'll have a second conference,
Let's monitor in the market.
again, having to do with the FDA, and this. I think it's going to be potentially a very exciting news conference, and we will do it as quickly as we
We do have
can,
our
so
working on
whether
that
it's
stuff.
today or tomorrow. And I'll,
Pretty
with that,
upside
ask
here.
Mike Pence to say a few words, and
You can see we
thank you
kept
very
off
much.
that was very lock limit.
Thank you,
from
Mr.
last
President.
night.
The White House Coronavirus
Market
Task
is
Force
making
met
moves.
this morning, and now that we have cases in all 50 states, we're continuing to move out
Yeah,
on the
no,
President's call to bring the full
2.5.
resources of the federal government, the
Ready
full
market
partnership
layout.
with every state and territory, the full power of the American economy to support businesses and families. As the President says to us, and every day, we'll do whatever it takes. We're all in this together. Yesterday, the President met with the tourism industry executives and also had an engaging discussion with all the top companies in our industrial and medical supply chain. The President, as you all are aware, also announced today that by mutual consent, the northern border of Canada will be closed to non-essential travel. This does not include essential travel or the transit of goods, but it was through mutual discussion that took place this morning between the President and Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Department of Homeland Security will be effectuating that decision. The President spoke with some of the nation's top business leaders today, again, to speak about the supply chain in the country. For our part, we're going to be conducting a conference call later today with state and local health officials to renew our ongoing commitment of cooperation and collaboration. As the President said last week in signing the Stafford Act, he stood up the National Response Coordination Center, and today at the President's direction, FEMA has gone to level 1. To ensure that they have full connection to all of the activated regions for FEMA going forward.
So
with
FEMA
regard to
doesn't
testing,
implement
I'm pleased to report
level 1,
that
which
we're
is
increasing the number of
that
tests being
figure in it
performed
all.
by the thousands every day, thanks to
Meaning
the
that
public-private
it's bad,
partnership
it's bad.
that
It's been
President
nice
Trump
over the level
forged
1.
with commercial laboratories around the country. Our health experts tell us to remind every American, it's important to remember, people without symptoms should not get tested. We want to make sure that the supply of testing is there for those that need it most or are symptomatic or in the vulnerable population. Dr. Deborah Birx in a moment will address the progress that we're making on testing, the infection rate, our recommendations to every American, as well as some important new findings about the impact on youth that we're gaining from data that's coming in from Europe that'll be important to every American. On the subject of supplies, the President has our task force extremely focused, as the President mentioned mentioned that he's invoking the Defense Production Act today. Secretary Esper in a few moments will describe the ongoing efforts that the Department of Defense is taking to make medical resources available. Secretary Robert Wilkie will announce decisions the VA has made to expand hospital capacity within their system. Also, with regard to medical personnel, at the President's direction, HHS is issuing a regulation today that will allow all doctors and medical professionals to practice across state lines to meet the needs of hospitals that may arise in adjoining areas. In addition to that, we are again today asking every American and our medical community leaders and hospitals to partner with us in delaying elective procedures across the country in our healthcare system to ensure that medical supplies and medical capacity go where they're needed most. Seema Verma will describe guidance that CMS will be issuing on that front. And finally, I want to remind every American of the President's 15-day guidance to slow the spread. We are grateful for members of the media and the general public that are adhering to these, sharing them with neighbors and friends. all of our experts continue to believe that if every American will do their part and embrace and put into practice these principles, that we can significantly limit the reach of the coronavirus in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
President.
very much.
level
Thank you.
1
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President.
จะเป็น
So,
การ
you know, we continue to look at data every single day. There are concerning reports coming out of France and Italy about some young people getting seriously ill and very seriously ill in the ICUs. We think part of this may be that people heeded the early data coming out of China and coming out of South Korea that the elderly or those with pre-existing medical conditions were at particular risk. It may have been that the millennial generation, our largest generation, our future generation, that will carry us through for the next multiple decades, there may be disproportional number of infections among that group. And so even if it's a rare occurrence, it may be seen more frequently in that group and be evident now. So we're looking at that information very carefully. We have not seen any significant mortality in the children, but we are concerned about the early reports coming out of Italy and France. So again, I'm going to call on that generation that's part of that group that brought us innovation, particularly throughout all of their ability to look around corners and skip through games. I always went level by level. I didn't realize that you could go from level 3 to level 7. That's what they've taught us. They look for things that we don't see. We need them to be healthy. So again, not only calling on you to heed what's in the guidance, but to really ensure that each and every one of you are protecting each other.
I mean the guidance
And
might
so
change
we
at
cannot
this
have these large
epidemic
gatherings that
is
continue to occur throughout the country for people who
getting
are off
worse
work to then be
too.
socializing in large groups and spreading the virus. You have the potential then to spread it to someone who does have a condition that none of us knew about and cause them to have a disastrous outcome. Finally, on the testing piece and what we're learning, I know you know last week in bringing the private
Germany is
sector,
up
I
to
think what
12,000
has
now.
been exciting to me over the last 2.5 weeks is to see this administration harness the full capacity of the private sector, understanding that a lot of our solutions that we need to confront this virus rely on the private sector. Bringing the private sector commercial labs was critical into this process. We are now beginning to see that they have spread out in a prioritized way because we asked them to prioritize the regions that were
The UK
mostly
and the US
affected.
is next hit
And
is
so you
the
still may
probability
have
of the next hit
difficulty
is
getting
coming to the
tests
US
in
and the
areas
USA.
that do not have significant cases. We've had them prioritize the regions where we need diagnosis and their diagnostic percent. Remember I told you South Korea was under 4%, so 96% of people were negative. The last report we've seen from the laboratories have about a 7+% positivity rate. Still 93+% or 92% are negative. But I think that's encouraging to me personally that we're prioritizing appropriately to those areas that have the greatest need.
How that will be
Today and
encouraging.
yesterday, Thermo Fisher pushed out most of their laboratory testing capacity. And that will dramatically increase that platform and the ability to run additional tests in addition to Roche. So I appreciate everybody's attention to these numbers. I'm excited that we've prioritized where the need was the greatest.
Excited.
But again, please
Oh,
follow the
Jesus
guidance
Christ.
and please make sure in
Yeah,
every report
excited.
that you're putting out
Better
that
than
you're
do it.
talking about the presidential guidance to actually stop the spread of this virus.
Don't want to be a pessimist, but man,
Mark, please.
So good afternoon, everyone, and I want to provide an update on DoD's coronavirus efforts as we continue to focus on our three priorities. That's first of all, protecting our personnel and their families. Second, safeguarding our national security mission capabilities. And third, of course, supporting the administration's
Yeah.
whole-of-government approach.
10 minutes away
First of all,
from
though, I
12
do
minutes away
want to
from
assure
London close.
the American people that the United States military remains ready and capable of defending the country and our interests abroad. Now, with that, the Department is leaning forward in our response to COVID-19. We have issued international and domestic travel restrictions to all DoD personnel and families
about
that should dramatically reduce potential
most
exposure
likely
to the
within the next
virus.
hour.
Those have been in place for some time now. As I announced yesterday, the Department of Defense will make available up to 5 million N95 respirator masks and other personal protective equipment from our own strategic reserves to the Department of Health and Human Services for distribution. The first 1 million masks will be available immediately. We are also prepared to distribute to HHS up to 2,000 operational deployable ventilators for use as needed.
USA is
Yesterday, I was at
important,
Fort
I guess.
Detrick, Maryland, which is
Within the
probably
US,
the
that will be
military's
going to
premier
take
research
place.
institute, where I got updated on the incredible work our people are doing as part of
If
the
you look at the
interagency
curve,
team
the
to
US
work on
curve
vaccines
is
and
not
therapeutics. They are
declining.
making great progress
The
there.
US curve is
We also have announced that
incline.
we've certified our
More or less
16th
in line
lab.
from what
We'll
I'm
soon
seeing
certify our
with
16th
Italy.
lab to help with
So,
processing tests from across the
This
country.
is what the attended delay may have cost
Additionally, I have
the US
directed,
and
as the
Britain.
President mentioned, that the
Britain would
hospital
be
ships Mercy
seeing
and Comfort be prepared to
a kick in my
deploy to
opinion
increase the
also.
nation's medical capacity.
Spain
We've
is
also
suffering,
alerted
Italy
a
is
variety
in
of
the ship
field and
house.
expeditionary hospitals to be prepared to deploy as well as needed, based on direction from the Commander-in-Chief. Today, leadership from the Army Corps of Engineers is in New York, meeting with Governor Cuomo and his team. I spoke with Governor Cuomo yesterday, and other governors I will be speaking to more in the coming days to make sure that they know what DoD can provide through our system to address their needs. In my conversations with governors and members of Congress about DoD's resources, I've made it clear that we will continue to support the administration's comprehensive efforts and the country every step of the way while ensuring our nation's
Oil
security
is
remains the top priority.
gone.
I want to conclude by thanking again all of our
It is
service
gone.
members and their families who have been affected by this outbreak. They are all great heroes. We are continuing to support them throughout this. We are all in this together. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
So yesterday, the President made a very important announcement about telehealth, and this is allowing our 62 million seniors to be able to get some medical services from the safety of their home, reducing their risk and without any copays. But we're also making sure that the healthcare system is prepared and that those on the front lines have the support that they need. The reality is the stakes are high, and we need to preserve personal protective equipment for those that are on the front lines of this fight. And to that end, we have put out guidelines over the last 2 weeks to expand the types of masks that can be used in routine care and saving those N95s for the most risky situations. Conserving personal protective equipment is also essential to combat the virus. So today, CMS will announce detailed recommendations to further promote this needed conservation, specifically by limiting non-essential elective medical and surgical procedures, including dental procedures. We believe that these recommendations will help surgeons, patients, and hospitals prioritize what is essential while leaving the ultimate decision in the hands of state and local health officials and those clinicians who have direct responsibility to their patients. And we urge providers and clinicians and patients to seriously consider these recommendations. They will not only preserve equipment, but it also allows doctors and nurses to help those that are on the front lines. And it'll protect patients from unnecessary exposure to the virus. We fully appreciate that this is going to have a major impact on the
Wednesday
healthcare
by
system,
Saturday
but the shared
evening, US
sacrifice
might
is
be at
essential
around
to
10,000
help those that are on the
implied.
front lines. And I want to thank the medical societies such as the American College of Surgeons and the American Dental Association that took a proactive approach and already posted these recommendations. And we've also talked to the American Medical Association, and they have fully
Yes,
indicated
because
their support for this recommendation.
They made a
We now
flop
invite
with
the entire
they
healthcare
made a
community
flop
to
with
join us in this effort.
testing
Thank
because
you.
there was not a lot of testing going on when in the early
Thank you,
days
Mr.
shut out in
President.
testing.
My
as
instructions
the
from
most
the President
developed
were
country in
very
the world.
clear. I was to do everything
It's a
imaginable
mess.
as aggressively as possible to protect the 9.5 million veterans who are part of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Last month, we established 19 emergency operations centers across the country. We began to limit the number of visitors who entered our facilities. We began, I think, we were the first system to begin triaging across the country in our 170 hospitals the entrance of anyone into our facility without being questioned or tested. We expanded those restrictions to those in our 135 community living centers,
Run and
which
go to
which
in
have
7
about
minutes.
7,800 veterans who are in acute conditions, to make sure that they were protected. We also took the next step and made sure that we limited the dental surgeries that we were provided. We've cut back by 1/3 the number of routine appointments we have had, and we have canceled elective surgeries. These were all part of the President's directive to be as aggressive in a public health sense as we could be. And I think we have set the pace for the entire
Italy
country.
reporting
I
expected
will
as
say,
more than
we've
likely
often said that we work the most noble mission in the
looking at
federal
10 to
government.
12,000
Our veterans have been in the toughest
by
spots.
Saturday in the US.
They have been put in conditions that are
ช่วงนี้ก็เฮ็ดเป็น
unimaginable
ที่หารบ้า
to
บ่
most
so
Americans. And they have responded. They have responded clearly. They have responded with passion. And also, the 400,000 members of our department who are out there on the front lines. The last thing I will say is that you have heard a lot about the fourth mission that VA has. Our first three missions are health care, benefits, and memorial affairs. Our fourth mission is to support the federal government in times of natural disasters and pandemics. We are the buttress force in case that FEMA or HHS calls upon us to deploy medical professionals across the country to meet crises. We plan for that every day. We are gaming out emergency
London 5
preparedness
minutes from
scenarios,
cash
and we
cash is now
stand
closed
ready
in London.
when the President needs us to expand our mission. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice. Any questions, please?
Right.
If I may, your Treasury Secretary was on Capitol Hill talking about the potential for what could come, and he said that unemployment could skyrocket to 20%. Are we looking, that could rival the Great Depression? Are we looking at potentially
No,
historic?
well, I don't agree.
This is why I got that
devastation?
last day.
No, I don't agree. That's a absolute total worst case scenario. But, no, we don't look at that at all.
Okay, thank you. My second question.
We're nowhere near it.
Okay, why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot
Because
of
it
people
comes
say
from
it's
China.
racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China.
Oh my lord,
China.
this man
Yeah,
is
yeah,
going to
Yeah,
freaking
please, John, please.
how
Behind you, are you
I
comfortable
have
with this term?
I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, and they stopped now, that it was caused by
Racist
American
tendencies.
soldiers. That can't happen.
Let's
It's
continue.
not going to happen, not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
4 minutes away from London.
Two
Good.
questions, if I could, Mr. President. First
Cash
of all,
flows
on the
are
Defense
in.
Procurement Act, you're invoking it today. Senator Schumer
Yes.
said on the floor a short time ago that it urgently needs to be put into action to produce medical supplies, particularly ventilators. Do you have some targets that you would like to see immediately spooled up under the
We
act?
we have tremendous numbers of ventilators, but there's never been an instance like this where no matter what you have, it's not enough. That would be the case. And we will be, it's
Okay,
it's
politic
being
ad
signed,
temptiva
it's
niya, good.
essentially gone, and I'm going to sign it in just a little while. If we need to use it, we'll be using it at full speed ahead.
You said it's urgently needs to be used. Do you have some
Well,
targets?
we're going to know whether or not urgent, but we will, yeah, we do have targets. We have targets for certain pieces of equipment. We have targets for masks. You know, the masks, the numbers of masks are incredible. We've ordered millions of them, but we need millions more. A thing like this has never been requested, and we've never had to even think in terms of these numbers, but we need millions of masks, and all of that will be ordered. We need
The Dow is
respirators.
definitely
We
on
need,
20,000.
Ventilators is a big thing because it's a complex piece of equipment. So we have a lot of ventilators, but we're going to be ordering them.
And second question, what size will the checks be that will be sent out to them?
Single
To be
trade possible.
determined. We're working
Offer
with
that 71
the,
again.
Senate right now. We're working with everybody on Capitol Hill. There's been tremendous, there really has been, I mean, with some
London
exceptions,
is 2
obviously,
minutes away
because
from
it's
close.
always the way it is, but there has been, they've been getting along very well, Republicans and Democrats. It's a nice thing, very
Looking to sell
bipartisan.
off the point of control.
$1,000?
Well, we're going to see. I don't want to get into that right now, John. We are looking at different numbers. We're looking at timing that would be different, splitting the time, splitting the payments. We're looking at a lot of different things. Hasn't been determined yet, but it will shortly be determined, and people want to go big as opposed, everybody seems to want to go big, and they
a
want to get
single.
to the recovery. The big day is, the big thing we can do is
What
get
you
rid
will
of
upload
this
drop to the downside.
horrible,
Want to see test,
I call
one
it
more
the
test,
unseen,
and then drop to the
unseen
downside.
enemy.
Okay, you're
Call
not
it-
71,
there's
should be
a
safe.
1,000 different terms
Looking
for
at
it, but
getting
when
at
it
75.
snuck up on us, And
Oh.
it did 128 countries. I think it's in something like that, very close to that. Think of that. So it spreads violently. It's a very contagious.
This guy trying to
Very,
crash
very
the market
contagious
is my
virus.
opinion.
Consider America to be on a wartime footing in terms of fighting
Looking at
the virus?
71 to
I
75
actually do.
as the
I'm looking at
entry.
it that way because, if it
12.5
got out of
points, I
control,
just
the big
stopped.
thing we did was a very early stoppage of people coming in who could be very, very heavily infected. That was a very good move, and it was very early, very, very early, when most people, including a lot of
Start
professionals,
following
they
your
didn't want
approach,
us
yeah,
to do it.
aggressive.
That really saved a lot of lives, and yeah, I look at it, I view it as in a sense, a wartime president. I mean, that's what we're fighting. I mean, it's a
Well,
very tough
there's no
situation. You have to
50
do
seconds,
things.
I
You have
suppose.
to close parts of an economy that 6 weeks ago were the best they've ever been. We had the best economy we've ever had, and then one day you have to close it down in order to defeat this enemy. And but we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And I'll tell you, the American people have been incredible. For the most part, they've been really incredible. Yeah, please, Caitlin.
For you, and then I have one for Secretary Loki as well, but I'll start
What
with
upload, join your
you.
upload,
You
join
just
your
said
upload,
there
join
are
your
a
upload.
tremendous number of ventilators that we have, but for weeks, hospitals have been warning about a critical shortage that they say we are not prepared for. So why did it take so long to invoke the Defense Production
Well,
Act?
hospitals are supposed to have ventilators too. And when we have
I didn't get
thousands
filled, I
of
didn't get filled.
ventilators, it sounds like a lot, but this is a very unforeseen thing. Nobody ever thought of these numbers. Nobody ever saw numbers like this. Even with regard to testing, normally we wouldn't be doing testing, and they decided to do
It's
it.
like this guy
Very,
trying to
very hard
attempt
to
to
ramp up. Now we're getting highly sophisticated
manage
tests.
to-
And it's going very well, but nobody's ever heard of testing in the kind of quantities that you're talking about.
But we knew for
But-
weeks we needed more ventilators, so why did it take so
Well,
long?
we knew. It depends. It depends on how it goes. Worst case, absolutely. Best case, not at all. So we're going to have to see where it goes. But we are ordering
Rina, like a certain
thousands and
below
thousands of
7,000.
ventilators. And they're complex. These are complex machines, and but we're ordering them. Does anybody have a, Mike? Maybe you do. How many do we have? And we're ordering. Please, yeah, please. Do you know?
breakout, 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 breakout,
We
breakout.
have a specific number of ventilators in the stockpile. It's
Breaks
in
that
excess
52 level of the
of
USS.
10,000, and you just heard the announcement from the
Dangerous
Department of
place to be
Defense
if you're a
that we have
trader.
several more thousand of that. But President, even this morning and yesterday afternoon, speaking with the largest companies in the supply chain.
Somebody
in this
trying to
country,
hold up
we're
the
hearing
market
a
idea.
tremendous spirit among industry leaders who are ready to step in and add to that volume. The stockpiles don't count all of the ventilators that exist today in the marketplace and in healthcare facilities around the country. But the President's given us a directive to make sure that our stockpile, but
Somebody
just as
trying to hold up the
importantly,
market
working
there.
with industry leaders,
Most
that
likely it
we're
might be the Fed
securing,
because the amount of volume to be
the
absorbing.
increase in ventilators,
Yeah,
the increase
seen
in masks,
Tin,
gloves,
tin market.
eye protective care, garments that are all necessary to lean forward. And we're confident we'll be able to accomplish that with the incredible cooperation of the
Market
supply
is
chain
pretty
that
thin.
exists in America today.
Do you have an exact number for nationwide, how many ventilators we have?
We can give you that exact number. We'll give it to you. But we're ordering a lot more.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead in the back. Yes.
Question for the VA Secretary? I have one question.
Yeah, 1 second. 1 second, Greg, and we'll do it in a second. You'll be able to.
Two questions, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yes.
The first one on the Canadian border. What was the tipping point? Friday we talked about it, and Monday you said no, we're not considering closing
No, I
the
said not
border.
yet. I spoke with the Prime Minister, Trudeau. Very good relationship, obviously, between us and our two countries. And
We
no
option in the
tipping point.
market.
It's just that we
We
want
sold an option, we
we
sold an
want to
option
isolate
spread.
from the standpoint
We
we don't want
sold
people coming into contact because that's the way we're going to
27
win this war.
80s,
That
we
is so
sold
important.
23 80s in the
And we
money.
both thought it was time. Now, it's not affecting trade. It's non-essential. It's non-essential crossings. It won't affect trade at all, and it was just something we thought would be good for both countries. Yes, please.
Border closed, border
Question,
closed.
Mr.
right.
President. How can you be sure that trade
Go ahead,
is not
please.
going to be a vector of the virus? How can you be sure that trade and everything that's being shipped from one side?
Well, they're doing it in a very careful manner. You can only be vigilant and very professional, but it's not pertaining at this moment to trade between the two countries. Yeah, please.
We are hearing that the trillion-dollar
Future
economic
order,
stimulus
future
package
contract.
could look something like $50 billion for the airlines, $150 billion in loan guarantees for critical sectors of the economy, a $250 billion payment
That's
on
the
April
execution we're looking
6th
for.
directly to individuals, another $250 billion
2070.
payment on May 18th, again, directly to
Only
individuals,
because I-
and as well, $300 billion for small business loan guarantees. Is that, in the general sense, what
It could
you're
be,
looking at?
it could be, and we're also playing with a lot of numbers, a lot of very big numbers, and a lot of very small numbers, frankly. We want to take care, we have to help everybody. It was nobody's fault. This happened. I mean, some people could say it was somebody's fault, actually. But it was nobody's fault, and certainly none of these companies that all of a sudden had no passengers in planes and had no passengers on cruise ships and all of the things that have happened. But I will say that
But the
they
lean
can't
on
be
that point
blamed
of
for this,
control,
and
the lean
we
on the
wanna
point
keep
of
those
control, that's the
companies
point of
vibrant
control
because
is entry.
there's going to be a comeback very, very
You're looking
quickly
at
as soon as this is
2070 as
solved,
the entry
and
fast.
it will be solved. We will win, and there will be a comeback, and it'll take place very quickly.
There's give or take 330 million
Somebody's trying to hold up the
Americans or
market at that
so. Do the math
2050
on that,
level.
it's about $750 a person, a family of
Well,
four,
like
that
these
would
are
be
big
about
guys, so you're probably
$3,000
kissing that
on average, again, rough math.
a lot. If you
Is
see the
that where
picture,
this is
that
Well, no, I
would
don't want
open
to
it
say
up
that
for the
because it's a
downside.
moving, these are all, every number that you mentioned, yes, we've talked about those numbers, we're also moving those numbers in both directions. So we'll let you know, it's moving along fast. Again, there's a great
Market is very thin, so it's very
bipartisan
dangerous.
effort going on that
Take
I
minimal
haven't
amount of
really
risk,
seen
we take
before to this
12.5
extent.
points of risk on the on the risk side.
FDA approved that test.
No, they're looking at it, it's down the line, and they're looking at it very seriously. And I think it would be a great thing because the others, to
If
use
that
a
market
nice
does
word,
let
it's
go
very
of that
inconvenient.
2050 level,
It's very
expect
tough.
order flow to go straight.
You tweeted this
Good
morning
luck,
about your
all.
approval rating amongst Republicans. You have said that you give yourself a 10 in terms of handling this crisis. How do you reassure Americans at home who don't trust you to handle a crisis of this magnitude?
Well, I think we're doing a really good job. We started off with a termination of the border, the people coming in from China, where this all started. That meant I took it very seriously.
We
And
saw
when
the
I use the word
uptrend
calm
being
doesn't
reflected
mean
by our
that
stocks
I'm
on
not taking
the
it seriously. Calm means, and we
on
should
the
be
future
calm, we
side,
should be extremely calm.
2380.
But yeah, 95% within the Republican Party and over 50%.
This is going to
And
get
I
pretty
also
messy in
have,
our opinion.
we have
We're
very
looking
great
at the
approval
figures
numbers.
at
I think people like the job
2070.
that we're doing. And when you compare this to other epidemics, or if you want to use a different term, you
if that
can,
support
but within
breaks
this country, and you look at what's
2052.
happened over the years, this is being handled very, very professionally. We have the greatest professionals in the world. We're doing a good job. Nobody's ever been swamped like this. And nothing's been so contagious. The level of contagion has been incredible, actually. Nobody's seen anything quite like this. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
If I can ask you about the test, sir, for a second. If federal officials have shipped millions of tests, as you and your colleagues have said, why, as the federal government says, have only 59,000 tests been
Pressure is
processed
building.
to this
You
point?
can
We just
see
heard from
the-
the Atlanta public health director saying
If
that
you go
they
to the
have
Domio
fewer than
to
50
voice price
test
action,
kits
a lot of
for more
liquidity
than
there.
900,000 citizens.
Yeah,
Where are
well,
the
I'll
tests?
That's the collision point. Collision to break. If the collision to break is the
So
option
that's a
we
very
have.
critical question, and
Running
thank you
right
for
now.
asking it. So the test kits
Cost
that we put
option
out
is
last
pretty
week,
high.
the approval, the rapid movement of that meeting that President Trump called less than 2 weeks ago, that has resulted in bringing our private sector to the table, because the test and the platform that was out there could only run between 4 and 12 tests per platform per day. We've now moved into platforms that can run basically tens of thousands of tests per day. So yeah, the reason
Yeah,
I'm
we got the-
grateful for your question, because it allows me to point out that, of course, then there was backlog. There were
What's that?
individuals who
Yeah, come
had
on,
been
for that.
tested, who hadn't had their specimen run because of the slow throughput. It's now in a high-speed platform. So we will see the number of people diagnosed dramatically increase over the next 4 to 5 days. I know some of you will use that to raise an alarm that we are worse than Italy because of our slope of our curve. To every American out there, it will be 5 to 6 days worth of tests being run in 24 to 48 hours. So our curves will not be stable until sometime next week. The reason I talked about Thermo Fisher yesterday is because their platform is in 2,000 laboratories. They're the ones that are putting out the million tests this week that will solve the issue that Atlanta and others have brought up. I wanted to be clear. We prioritize the areas. We do county by county analyses. Based on those analyses, on what counties had more than 50 cases, we prioritize the test kits we put out, the 400,000. And that's why we're seeing a 7% plus positivity rate. We'll be able to expand that platform and reprioritize based on the accessibility of the other kits.
Perhaps I could follow up. How are non-symptomatic professional athletes getting tests while others are waiting in line and can't get them? Do the well-connected go to the front of the line?
Well, that you'd have to ask them that question. I mean, I've read. No, I wouldn't say so, but perhaps that's been the story of life. That does happen on occasion, and I've noticed where some people have been tested fairly quickly. Look, we inherited a very, excuse me, we inherited a very obsolete system. This was a system that was out of date, obsolete, or it was a system that was never meant to take care of the kind of quantity, the number of people that we're talking about, millions and millions of people. If you go back in years past, like even recently with the flu, nobody had tests before. They didn't test the entire nation to see whether or not they had flu. They got the flu, they got better. Hopefully they got better, that was it. Now all of a sudden they do this very complex testing. What we've done is we've broken it down, we've broken up the system, but it was obsolete, and or you could say it was also a system that just wasn't meant to handle the kind of volume that you're talking about. We've rebuilt it into a system that for the future will be a very good system if you want to go this route. But this was never done before, and I would imagine it will be done in the future. We built it into a very good system by using private companies, the great private companies. And I have to say Roche has been doing a very good job.
That is big money we have on the board there for.
But this was an obsolete system. This was not a system that was meant to do anything like this or even near this. John?
President, a couple things. The major trade coalition is calling on you to suspend tariffs with other countries as part of the response to the coronavirus.
Who heads that group? Those countries do.
No, it's an American free trade.
I know. I'm sure free trade. Look, China's paying us billions and billions of dollars in tariffs, and there's no reason to do that. They haven't even spoken to me about that. China hasn't asked me to do that, but we're getting billions of dollars a year from tariffs from China, and I can't imagine Americans asking for that.
The joy
It could be that China will ask for a suspension or something. We'll see what happens. China's having a very rough time. They have their worst year in 76 years, as I understand it.
Well, like we must be actually just now on the future side.
On top of it, this happened with the virus. But no, we're taking in billions of dollars a year in tariffs, and this was caused by something totally unrelated to tariffs.
On asylum seekers and people who cross the southern border illegally, are
this is what we monitoring very
invoke
closely to
42
see
USC 265,
what
which
the
would
ball
allow
looks
you
like.
to prohibit entry of certain people
The
across
answer is
the border?
yes. Very soon, probably today. Yes.
Are there plans to fully shut the Mexican border, and what do you define as essential travel when it comes to the U.S.-Canadian border?
Well, I think essential is medical. We have military working together. We have industry working together.
You can see why.
And again, it's not affecting trade, so things like that. But just leisurely, let's go to a restaurant and have dinner, which a lot of people do. They come both ways. They go in both directions. That kind of thing we have ended on a temporary basis. Yeah, please go ahead.
Looking at it.
Not close it. No, we're not going to close it. But we are invoking a certain provision that will allow us great latitude as to what we do. Please. Yeah, go ahead. You know what? Go ahead.
The Wall Street Journal. So I just wanted to clarify something, because just a week ago, you all were standing here telling us that unless you had sustained contact with somebody who was symptomatic for COVID-19, you really didn't need to worry. You told the president, the vice president, that if they shook hands with somebody who had this, if they took a photograph with somebody who had this, they didn't really need to worry. And yet, several days later, we're in a situation where people are being told, don't leave their houses. There are curfews saying you cannot walk alone at night after a certain time. Can you walk us through
our spread already, very pricing after pricing already.
From what we were hearing before to what we're hearing now?
That's it, done brief.
So two things. We look at data all the time, and I know you're looking at the China and South Korea data. And when you look at China and South Korea data and you look what China and South Korea did, you can see that their curves
That's
are
more
not
than
only
option, right?
blunted outside of Wuhan.
Water flow and
So
open lock
Chinese
probably
areas
more than
outside
likely
of
gonna lock
Wuhan,
for 15
blunted
minutes
curve, and
if we do
South
hit the
Korea,
downside.
blunted curve. If you look at their curve
There is
today,
somebody big
they're
acting on the
already
market on the
on
other side of
far
the market
end
trying to
of
hold
their
up this
epidemic
market.
curve. Of course, none of those countries are fully back to work, and so that's what
So
we
the
worry
option
about.
trade we in.
Secondly, there was a series of scientific articles published.
We
I
had
know you've seen them
7%,
too,
1500 down on the Dow.
I think none of us really understood the level of surface piece. So we're still working out how much is it by human-human transmission and how much is it by surface. And this is why those fundamental guidelines were put out that says don't expose yourself to surfaces outside the home. Basically what those guidelines are is don't expose yourself to excess number of persons who could be asymptomatic and infected, and then the person-to-person contact, and don't expose yourself to surfaces that could have had the virus on it, for which on hard surfaces, I know we had the cardboard issue about shipping, hard surfaces, not shown in fabric as much or in cardboard, but hard surface transmission. These are issues that we haven't had to deal with before with the level of respiratory infections, and that's why we have this concern, and that's why the President put out the guidelines. And so it's to cover both of those pieces. That's all new science, all new models. I think many of you have the Imperial study available and looked at the impact of those. That's the first time those have been modeled as a comprehensive approach to mitigating an epidemic.
Point why this point is so important to us is
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the administration wielded an executive order that would expand the use of investigational drugs against the virus, but that FDA scientists are warning that this could put patients at risk.
I haven't seen the article. No, I haven't seen the article. We are making a lot of progress therapeutically, I will say that, but I have not seen that article. No. Go ahead.
We've shut down non-essential travel to Canada. Are you considering shutting down all travel to prevent the spread of the virus? And we've heard from industries like the airlines who are seeking relief. What other industries or how exactly is your administration going to determine which industries and businesses get
Well, there
help?
are certain industries that people know. I mean, the airlines would be number one if you look at what's going on. They go from having the best year they've ever had to having no passengers because of what we've had to do in order to win this war. It's a war. And so, basically, what many of the industries are. What we want to do is we want to make sure they all stay together so that after the war is won, we can immediately go right back up to where we were and even beyond. I think we're going to go beyond where we were. And a lot of people are saying that, by the way. We're poised to do that. But we have to win the war first. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Follow up on that. Treasury proposed $150 billion today for those industries, but their proposal doesn't detail which industries would get that money and how much. So aside from the airlines, which you just mentioned, what about the cruise industry, the hotels? Yeah. How much of that money do you see them each
We're
getting?
talking about
somebody's absorbing that liquidity.
We have detailed it to senators and to members of the House.
Right, yeah,
We've been talking about it, and we're coming up with numbers. Haven't gotten there yet, but certainly hotel
I'm
industry,
looking at the background,
industry,
looking at what the large orders are.
Prime candidates, absolutely.
On bookmark.
Border, sir.
2050 is a big point.
The northern border.
One way or the other, it's going to break the one side or the
That
other.
means 30 days.
I would say 30 days, and hopefully at the
If
end
it's
of 30
option
days,
shaded
we'll
as
be
a
in great
strangle,
shape.
you're looking for a strangle.
Jeff, please.
I'd actually directionally spreading it
Millennials and others perhaps not
on the 90-day option.
Mornings as seriously as you'd like. Some of those
30
people
June
also
option.
seem to be your supporters and conservatives who
Option
may
spread
be
short
quoting
from
some of what you said at the beginning of this,
2080
comparing it to the
to
flu.
2100.
What is your message to them to really follow what you've been saying so far, and are you concerned that they're still listening maybe to some of your earlier comments rather than your more recent ones?
Well, I think my earlier comments are to be calm. I mean, I do want people to be calm because we're going to win this and we're going to win it. It's just a question of time. And I wanted to go quickly. So based on the fact that I wanted to go quickly, I hope they just listen to what we've been saying over the last period of time. We don't want them gathering, and I see they do gather, including on beaches and including in restaurants.
Florida man.
They don't realize that.
Florida man will be Florida man, so that'll be good. What the hell?
You felt invincible when you were very young, but They were feeling totally invincible, or are feeling that way, but they don't realize that
You
they
can see
can
crashes in the
be
market.
carrying
The
lots of
market
bad
is
things home
crashing
to
right
their
here.
grandmother and grandfather and even their
There
parents.
will be a winner all
So
the
we
time.
want them to heed the advice. We mean the advice, and I think
We
it's getting
implemented
through.
a
I do
90-day
believe it's getting
strong,
through, Jim. Please.
What do you say to them if they're watching?
A directional spread to the
I think there are
downside
a lot of them
from
watching. A lot of these people
2080
at home, these young people.
Well, I think I
But,
just
Cameron,
said it.
I was going to say, what do you
Heed
say
the
to them?
advice. Heed the
2180.
advice. I just said, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Mr.
This is not
Mr.
over.
President, how long do you think it's going to
We'll
last?
get you next, okay? Say it.
Thank you, Mr. President. In talking about China, you've been very clear about who you think is to blame or where the origin to blame for this virus is.
Not
Senator-
think. No. I don't think. I know where it came from. I don't know if you'd say China's to blame. Certainly, we didn't get an early run on it. It would have been helpful if we knew about it earlier. But it comes from China.
Stop blaming other people for your
It's not a question about
problems.
that. Nobody's questioning that.
Senator Cotton is saying that they should be punished, in so many words, for inflicting this on the American people. Do you feel that way about it?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Tom Cotton, and I know exactly what he's been saying. And there are those people that say that. So we'll see what happens. Thank you. Go ahead. It's your turn. Go ahead. Please. He's been waiting a long time. Please. You've had your hand up so nicely for a long time. It's your time.
Thank you, sir. We've seen the Chinese government kick out reporters from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post. What is your message to the Chinese when it comes to transparency at a moment when you still have reporters asking you questions here at the White House?
Yeah, I'm not happy to see it. I don't, I have my own disputes with all three of those media groups. I think you know that very well.
Clever.
But I don't like seeing that at all. I'm not happy about that at all. Yes, please.
I wonder if you agree with it. Do you believe that China is inflicting this upon our country?
No, I don't believe they're inflicting. I think they could have given us a lot earlier.
So what my
notice.
spread is
Please.
on the 90 day is
Go ahead,
like
please.
this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Using a 200 point spread.
Are very low. There was a recent NPR poll.
Cash indicators I don't have no.
I'm asking
Because I see that they're very high. If you look, I'm 95% in the Republican Party. We just had a poll that was done by
Why are we talking politics?
a very reputable group where I'm beating
Lock.
Sleepy Joe Biden by a lot
Market
in
is
Florida,
locked.
in the state of Florida, and in other states.
Market is
so I
locked.
don't really know who you're talking about. All right, Jennifer, go ahead, please.
Market is locked. Limit lock.
Conversation with the airline executive.
Yeah.
Did you explain
Limit
to
lock,
them
limit lock.
what's coming? What was their
I
reaction?
did, and they explained to me where they're coming from. I mean, they went from, as I said, full planes, packed, the best year they've ever had by far, to boom, one day empty because of what we have to do to
Option
get rid of,
market
to
would
win this
still
war.
be working.
Or we would have
It's the options. Lock, limit
a
lock.
level of death like people haven't
Option
seen
market
before.
on the 5th week.
So
This is
they've
spread
been
option
fantastic. I mean, they've
from
been
there.
great, but
So
they
what we
went
doing
from
on the
being
spread
extremely
option
happy
is as
to being
follows.
people that are running companies that are
Just have
gonna
limit
need
lock,
some
yeah.
help, and we'll help them, Jennifer.
Would you be willing to give us an update on how that's going? We've been getting some reports that counties have been having difficulty getting.
Well, it's going. I mean, there's a lot of influx to those loans, as you can imagine. A lot of people are looking at it, but we're going to be increasing funding a lot.
We take
They're
any
very well
secondary limit
prepared
lock.
to do what they have to do, and
As
the
we
SBA
trade.
is doing a fantastic job. She is doing a really good job, the administrator. John?
Questions for Dr. Burks.
Yeah.
We have our limit, our spread
Dr.
to
Burks,
2180.
researchers have had some luck with hydroxychloroquine in shortening the duration of disease. Is that something that might be in the arsenal of therapeutics here in the United States?
I think we're exploring every one of those issues. The president asked for a critical briefing on that today. He opened with that. It is more than that single drug. There are other drugs that individuals are looking at. Just to go back to what we've talked about many times, there is things that look really good in cell culture against the virus that may look good in small animals and then don't have an impact in humans. And so those are the pieces that we're looking at very carefully. Of course, there's always anecdotal reports, and we're trying to figure out how many anecdotal reports equal real scientific breakthroughs.
Are you confident of the seasonality of coronavirus?
All we can do is look at the past to inform the future. We know what SARS looked like. We also know, and I just want to put this out. I know you can get it online. Look at the curve in China and look at the curve in South Korea. Those curves were accomplished in still the winter season. And so we're trying to understand what those relationships are. We're very interested in the curves in Italy because of their different approach, and we're following every single country's curves. And so all we can do is look at prior coronavirus and prior respiratory infection RNA viruses or RNA viruses. When you look at flu in the northern hemisphere, when you look at parainfluenza and some of the other cold viruses, and if you look at SARS, that's the way the peak normally occurs. But that is a November to April.
Yeah, I see. There's no.
We all started later, and so you're asking me to predict based on a later start, and that's what we're trying to really look at China and South Korea to really inform that.
All right, Kate.
Starts off next week.
Secretary Wilkie, if you don't mind, or you could answer if you'd like. How many veterans of those that need to be tested have been tested?
Those that have needed to be tested, we believe we've caught most of them.
Italy is going to report another while.
44 veterans who have tested positive. Sadly, one has passed in Portland. We are working with state labs and private companies to make sure that testing is available. Because the president had us out aggressively early, we have been in a better place than most healthcare systems in the country.
Looking at what the offers are building out.
When the next surge will be,
yeah,
if
should be stopped for the next 15 minutes, probably
one of
close to the
the
next 15
things that
minutes,
we
the
do
market
at
might not be
VA
able to bounce.
is
So
that we prepare for national emergencies, be they national disasters
there may be
or
more
epidemics.
some
We
small
started
bids
preparing for this.
coming
We
into the
started
market.
stockpiling equipment. Our equipment is stable, and I think that's in
Just
large
went
part
into
because of the
Leo and
instructions the
the
president
future trade here. Got in at the right time on the option
we
trade.
tested several hundred. I can't give you the yeah, we've tested several hundred. Yes, we've tested several hundred. I don't know exactly. I do know that 44 veterans have the virus. Most of those are quarantined at home.
Because we are on the clock, as I wanted to get in early before the clock.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question for Dr. Burns, quickly. I'm trying to understand what it's about the mortality rate. Yesterday, we underlined the fact that we had reached 100 deaths. And this morning, we wake up and we're at 110. Within 12 hours, we climbed by 10%. Is it something we have to expect from now on?
But that's what is supposed to be expected. Didn't you read?
Every 12 hours.
So very early on in each one of these cases, if you look at all of the countries to date,
should be able to read. Don't ask a stupid question.
Because you're diagnosing the sickest, the ones who came in quite ill. And I just
No
want to
question, that's
remind
stupid
the
question, but
American
that's a stupid
public
question.
that still the majority, the risk for serious illness in the majority of Americans are low. But that doesn't mean that you can't transmit it to one of those higher risk groups. And that's why we're asking for all Americans to take responsibility. You're seeing mortality or deaths today from infections that occurred 2 to 3 weeks ago in general.
Anyhow, guys,
The other thing
it's
that
1
you're
o'clock.
seeing
I want
is
to
the
go and
dramatic
do
and
some stuff.
very difficult impact
So
of
hope
this
you guys
virus in
have a
your
reasonable
homes.
trading day.
And that's why very early on, the
so
president and vice
31,
president had
32,
us come out
23,
and
80,
CMS put those very
23,
strict rules
80,
in place, and everybody thought we were being too
21,
strict and
80,
keeping loved
21,
ones
80,
away
our
from
spread
their
trade
family
is
and
spreading
nursing
down
homes.
to the
If we're going to
downside.
solve this with
Looking
a
for
lower
that
death
13%
rate, we
limit
have to
down in
protect
the
the
market. This is
elderly
getting bad.
because of their
We have a
percent
lot
is
of
much
stuff going on in
higher
the market.
in
So hope you
mortality
guys
than any
stay
other
safe, wash your hands, do what you need to do to
Go ahead,
protect
please.
yourself. Keep yourself in your room if you
There's
need to.
reporting that the federal government has
I'll see you guys
plan
this
that shows
evening
this
on the market
coronavirus
recap.
outbreak might last as long
And we see how the
as
rest of the
18
day
months.
goes.
Are you seeing
Alright,
those
guys,
numbers?
bye.
Could it
No,
just
we're not
actually
seeing
last?
that at all.
And then my second